yeah, who are we? What's your background? What are you doing at the moment?
So my name's Diarmuid. I'm a fitness sales coach, if you want to if you want to call it that. So I basically coach fitness sales reps, teach them how to sell at a much higher percentage, and ideally to cut their call times down to like 30 or so minutes so that they can make more money in less time. That's really my goal at the moment. And
Yeah.
you?
My name's Orlando. I'm a high ticket closer. And yeah, I got a few different things going on, but mostly closing and then transitioning into building out like a community of other closers and then some other things down the track as well. Yeah.
Cool. Yeah. So, well, I guess welcome to the podcast, whatever it's called. I don't think we have a name yet.
No name.
No name podcast. If you have a good name idea, and you are watching this, you can comment or something. Let us know.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, we don't particularly have a plan for this.
Just gonna chat shit.
Chat shit. Yeah. I mean, you had a few questions there. Do you any of them coming to mind?
Yeah, like how did you actually get started in sales? Because I actually don't know that. I've just seen you over the last few years, but like,
Yeah,
I don't know how you actually transitioned into it.
I'd been thinking of the same question for yourself because I know we've touched on things randomly, but never heard like the coherent story.
Yeah.
So before I got into sales, before I even got into the online world, I was originally like dead set on being like a professor. So I was like
Bro,
on
teaching
track to
what?
do a PhD in sports
Oh,
science.
okay.
So I was getting paid by the Irish government to basically do like research on schoolboy rugby. So I was like very much, I'm like a published scientist as well, randomly enough. But I think that's ultimately, we're going off on tangents here, but that's ultimately one of those things that really helped when I did get into sales and when I got into management was like data science.
Yeah, just
like
knowing
I've
the
had to
numbers.
like do all of that stuff, a lot of it.
Yeah.
So that really helped. But basically, I was doing that, had a ton of momentum, was like going 100% down the academic route, was also working in like professional rugby academies as a rugby coach. And then COVID happened.
Yeah.
And it just took all the momentum out. I was working with schoolboy rugby. The schools were closed. You weren't allowed to play sports. I was still getting paid. So I was like, okay, I'm just getting paid to sit around my house. Like, what else can I do?
Yeah.
And I started trying to coach players online, like rugby players.
Oh, okay.
And I realized very quickly that like 18-year-olds don't have money to spend on coaching. So I was like, this is a dead market. I did coach a few people, but it was like, I think I was charging them like €50 a month or something.
Yeah.
So like nothing. And then my auntie, who's like famous enough, and she asked me if I could train. I think she has like 600,000 followers on Instagram or something.
Okay.
All like middle-aged women. So they love her. Like she's like the god of middle-aged women in the UK. So they basically, what happened was she asked me if I could train her during lockdown. So we did like Zoom workouts,
like fitness
and stuff.
coaching.
Yeah, just like Zoom workouts and stuff. And she started like shouting me out on her Instagram.
True.
And I'm sure Leah remembers it. Like when she shouted me out on her Instagram, and I think I got like 8,000 followers in like 24 hours.
Damn.
And my phone was literally like, you got a notification for every follower. It was just like all the way down. Like it was just going crazy. Every time I looked back at my phone, I had another 100. I was like, what the fuck? So then I was like, right, I guess I'm coaching middle-aged women. So just like roll with it. When life gives you lemons, like you make lemonade, right? So I just fucking went for that. And
so you were coaching them yourself, like
so I just pivoted into like, okay, I coach middle-aged women how to lose weight. Like that's the market now. And I have like 8,000 of them on my Instagram that think, because I'm associated with her, they think I'm like, some sort of
So
god.
did you message them, or they were just all messaging you? Like
they were just all following at first.
Yeah.
And I didn't really know what to do with it. So then I was selling coaching to them for like 200 a month or something.
Yeah.
And like I didn't have any experience in the online world or anything, and I was getting paid from my other job.
Yeah,
So
true.
like I wasn't making crazy money, but I remember being like, fuck, this is amazing.
Yeah.
Like, because I'm really not doing much and I'm making like quite a lot of money compared to anything I'd ever made
Yeah.
before. And from there, then I signed up for like a business mentorship, and then shit just went crazy quickly because the audience was there. I think in our first week, we made 10K.
True.
Yeah, and that's in euro. So
Yeah.
like whatever and thing. And I didn't know what I was doing, but that's just because they told us like just increase your prices. So I increased it to like 2.5K and
Yeah.
sold like 4 people in the first week
Yeah.
because I was like, oh, cash, like all paid in full. But that that went on for a while, but it sort of faded over time because I think like the success I had was it had come from being associated with someone,
It
but
wasn't your own
like
brand.
I wasn't very good at what I
Yeah.
was doing.
Yeah.
Like, I
Yeah.
had no branding myself.
Some
I just
random
had this
Irish
like,
guy.
yeah, I just had this like rush. And we did that for like a year or two, and
Yeah.
it went all right. Like we had some decent months and it faded a little bit sometimes. And then basically, look, well, I was going to say long story short, but I've told the whole story. But basically what happened was I signed up for another business mentorship, and my business was doing okay, but I didn't really like it. It was like, there's like ads and dealing with the people, having to actually coach them, and they're not happy a lot of the time and all of this. So my business mentor at the time had a really big fitness company in Australia. So basically they were doing like 1.6 million a month, I think, in
True.
Australian dollars. So
Right.
like big company.
Yeah.
And I was talking to him. I'd been like really into the sales side. I've been attending all the things, just doing the work. And he basically was just like, hey, like, you don't like your business. Do you want to just come work for us in sales?
Yeah.
And then I literally that week, like, fired all my clients. Like, I was like, I refunded them all. I was
I'm
like,
done.
I'm out of here.
Yeah.
Goodbye.
Yeah.
I've moved on to something else. And I just went straight into sales, and just haven't really looked back since. Yeah.
That's good. And you would have had a lot of sales experience from that business as well.
Yeah. And
Yeah.
that's something that, like, I always say to people is like, I think it's often the case, like when people have a lot of success and you see these people that like, they're like astronomical rise. Like my first month in dollars, I think I did like 12 or 13,000. Like, but you could look at that and be like, my first ever month in sales, I did $12,000. And that's like, wow, what the fuck? But like, you forget about the fact that like I had my whole business before, and I did loads of sales calls.
Yeah.
Like, and I think often when you dig into like these people that have these really fast rises, you find like, oh, they were sort of doing something.
They did some sort of sales beforehand.
Yeah. So like I paid for my own leads for like a year before or 2 years in my business, right?
Yeah.
And you practice with them, and if you fuck that up, that hurts. You're like, that person cost me like $200 to speak to.
Yeah.
And I just fucked it up.
Yeah.
So compared to like when you're doing sales. So
you treat every lead like much more valuable than probably the average closer who just gets it booked in their calendar and they're like, DQ, not qualified.
Yeah. And that's one of the things, like, we've spoken about this before a few times, like where people in the space, there's like this trend towards like, oh, I have to protect my time. I have to protect my energy. Blah blah blah, and you're like, mate, the business owner doesn't give a fuck. Like, are you making money for him or not? Like,
yeah, especially from the business owner's perspective, because they're just like, they're in your calendar. How much money can you make from that call, right?
Yeah.
Whereas the other hand, it's like from the salesperson's perspective.
Yeah, but like, who do you think is going to have like the better job offers, the better? And this is something I just put up a post the other day or yesterday about, like, who's going to have the better job offers? The guy that has like 5 offers and is like giving a little bit of himself to them all and is saving his energy and saving his time and isn't making the most of it? Or the guy that's known for and can provide proof of like, every offer I touch, I'm gold. Do you know? Who's going to find it easier to find a job?
I think it depends as well, right? Like even if you're on multiple offers, but you crush it on all of them from the
Yeah.
calls that you have, you'll still have a good reputation,
Yeah.
right? I think if you've got the reputation and then people who know you and they know you're good and then they refer you, it makes the interview process a lot easier.
Yeah. And I think that's the thing is it's like, are you doing well? Like, what's your motivation behind having multiple offers? Like, is it like...
Well, I know for me, so when I was working like full Australian hours,
Mhm.
it worked out well because I do a US offer
Yeah.
in the morning, get paid USD, so it's
Yeah,
like
yeah.
50% bonus, and then do an Australian offer in the afternoons.
Yeah,
So like
yeah.
that worked well because I was also able to cover like the afternoons and nights of the US market,
Mhm.
especially when that was on a fitness offer as well. So that was like prime time. And then in Australian hours, I'd do like 2 or 3 calls with the Australian business. So that worked well for me. Whereas if I just went like all in on the US one
Mhm.
by like 1 or 2 p.m. Aussie time, like I can't work more if I
Were
want
these
to.
both like low volume businesses?
The Australian one was low volume,
Okay.
but the American one was high volume, but I was just capped by the hours. Unless I started at like 3 or 4 a.m., you know?
Yeah, like it's the same as like I'm sure I say loads of things. I'm sure you say lots of things that people are like, oh, but the nuances.
Yeah,
Like
yeah,
I can
yeah.
disagree with it,
Yeah,
and it's
yeah.
like, yeah, fair enough. And I think this is just us doing that to other people's ideas as well.
Yeah,
But there's
for
like a
sure.
big narrative about like you need to have 2 offers, you need to have
Yeah.
3 offers.
I mean, even with sales training, like 80% of sales training is overlapping.
Oh,
Like we're all basically saying
good,
the same
good
shit.
sales is good sales.
Yeah,
Like,
exactly.
can you like are you good at sales?
Yeah.
Yeah, that it's going to be the same stuff regardless of where you get it from. But there's still a lot of muck out there.
Oh yeah, for sure.
You know.
There's I mean, I was reviewing a call earlier today and like as soon as he got one objection, like that was it. He just gave up.
Just capitulated.
Yeah. Like and then I said to him like, "Why didn't you push back?" And he's just like, "I was honestly scared to." I was like, "Yeah, you got to it is hard like cuz I remember when I was first getting objections when I first got into sales and I was like shitting myself. I was like, "Oh damn. Like, yeah, what do I say?" Cuz it felt really uncomfortable. But I think the more you do it, and then especially if you're selling a good service too, you have like way more conviction.
Yeah. And a funny thought just came into my head. Like, I wonder, is it easier to be the person that pushes way too hard on objections and to learn to tone it down?
Yeah.
Or to be the person that is too
Gives up
scared to
too
even
easily.
try and to try to learn how to do it?
I reckon you're better off being the guy that goes hard.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then you just have to learn how to like pull
How to
it
pull it
back
back.
a bit.
Yeah.
Because at least you've got it in you. You're like, fuck it, I'm just gonna go for this.
Yeah. Because that was my hardest thing for especially the first year when I was in sales, is like I just wouldn't hold people accountable to their goals. Because like I started off just selling, I was sending 50 cold DMs from Instagram a day and like from my own personal page, booking them into a 1 call close and then like going from that. So like they had no idea who I was before.
Yeah.
So it's like now when I'm getting leads where like they've followed the influencer for like over a year or they've read their book,
super warm.
I'm just like, boom, bring me
I guess
in, buddy.
that's like to reverse the question that you asked me, like, how did you actually get into sales?
Yeah.
Like, what's the timeline from like where you started to where you are now?
I didn't even know I was in sales. So I was working at McDonald's, right, for 4 years. That was like the only job I had. And COVID hit and I was studying uni and I got like a bunch of side hustle ads. So I saw one from a guy called Jason Capital and he had like, I think it was like a copywriting course.
Yeah.
Didn't even know what it was. I just saw make a few extra $1,000 a month sending DMs. I was like, all right, sweet. Like, sounds good. Signed up for that. And like, it was an okay program, but like, I didn't follow through with it. But I met people in it and like connected with other people in the group. And so there was one that had like an Instagram like branding offer where they did like shout out campaigns and things like that. So then I actually bought into that program.
Okay.
Red flag looking back, but I bought into that to then sell it to other people.
Oh, so it's like a pyramid scheme.
Well, I don't know. I don't know. Maybe it was, but like I was selling Instagram shout outs to people.
Were the shout outs selling Instagram shout outs to other people?
No. So the shout outs would be like someone with like millions of followers being like, hey, I'm giving away a PlayStation. Go follow these people.
Yeah, yeah,
And so
okay.
like they would all gain like
They were
10.
really big back in the day.
Yeah, so
Well, I
they
say back in the day. A few
well
years
that's
ago.
how like a lot of people got their followers. Like that's how
Yeah.
they'd get the 10k, 20k followers is just through those.
Yeah.
But yeah, I did that for like 9 months. And I was at a dinner with a partner of mine at the time, and her family was like, "So what do you do?" You know, the
Yeah.
best question to be asked by family.
Yeah.
And I was like, "Oh, you know, I send DMs, and then, you know, I jump on a call, and then they get these followers." And they're like, "Oh, do you like get them the followers?" And I was like, "No, someone else does that."
Yeah.
And they're like, "Oh, so you're in sales then?" I was like, "Oh yeah,
Fair
guess I'm
enough,
in
yeah.
sales." Okay. And then that was like the first moment I actually knew what I was doing.
That's funny.
But that let me quit McDonald's, so like I'll always be
Yeah.
grateful for like that first opportunity.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
And it also taught me a bunch about like how to brand yourself, how to market, how to turn someone from like never knowing you, like just seeing an Instagram request, turning them into a sale where
Yeah.
they're giving you like 3k over the phone.
Yeah.
So that was a great experience.
You hear a lot that the best salespeople, they come from fitness, or like it contributes, like they've done time with fitness. But I also think a lot of the best salespeople had like their own thing.
Yeah.
Because they just understand like how a business works. They have an idea of like marketing. They understand like a sales process. Like they just get it, because you're like, I had to fucking do it.
Yeah.
like I had to make it work myself. So
And they know the cost of not selling them.
yeah.
They're like, "Oh shit, that's $50 gone or $100 gone, whatever."
Yeah. And then like whenever I've managed teams, I've always like tried to tell them that. I'm like, nobody's ever going to ask you for the money or anything, obviously, but it's like you need to at least be aware that like, you know, that call that you just missed for no reason, like that cost $200. Like, what do you do? Like,
I was speaking to a guy the other day where he's a setter, and he was saying that he was setting calls and the closers like weren't showing up.
Like,
I was like, what? How? How does that happen? Like,
yeah. I think the bar is low in the industry. I'm not gonna lie. Like I've managed people that you're like, you know, they're in something horrific has happened for the 7th time this year, and you're just like, oh yeah, on a Sunday morning. Like there's only so many times I can believe you.
At least like try and reschedule them or something. Like,
yeah.
There's been times where it's like you hung over or whatever. And you got one call at 2 p.m. and out of the whole day, it's like, oh, do you want to do Monday? Like,
yeah. I've been there, like, but I would always. The thing is like take ownership.
Yeah.
Like if I'm not getting if I don't get a response, you're ringing them at the time. Like I'm ringing you at 2 p.m. and I'm just so I can be like, I was here.
Yeah.
Like I might try to reschedule, but I'm still going to be here and ring you.
Yeah.
And then at least it's like, okay, I've done my bit.
Yeah.
So yeah, I think there's a lack of awareness around like what's needed to run a business sometimes for some of these people. But yeah, it's an interesting space. So I mean, you're obviously looking to start your own thing a little bit. I guess like what are you kind of aiming for? What's the thought process behind that?
The long-term goal that I want is to basically have like a cult of like of sick closers.
Yeah.
That are like, you know, between like low to late 20s basically, like just other guys.
Are you their leader?
Maybe.
I think a cult has to have a leader. I think that's what makes it a cult.
Yeah. I just think cult's a funny word.
Yeah.
I feel like people want to be part of a cult nowadays, so I'll just lean into it.
But
just have like a bunch of other guys that are crushing it and like make each other better. Like obviously that's like quite popular at the moment, but like having that just for closers and also like closers that are based outside of the US. Because I actually do think it's a different ball game. Like if you're in the US, I think it definitely is. There's less friction to find good roles and then also get paid good money.
Yeah.
Like,
and like people just like credit, high tickets.
Yeah.
Like it's just like there's just more cash. I think people don't sometimes understand. Like, have you ever tried to sell in the UK?
Well, I was going to say Americans are also easier to sell to.
Yeah,
than Aussies or UK.
UK is like the ticket prices just have to be lower. Like, they just have to be like you're not selling massive tickets to people like. You hear of like 10k fitness offers, and I'm like, good luck trying. I'm sure there's businesses out there that do it, but like, I'm like, doing it in the UK, I'd be like,
Yeah.
I cannot imagine it. Your marketing would have to be so good,
Yeah.
and your targeting.
Yeah.
But you're not just gonna you're not gonna find the people as
Yeah.
easily that are willing to do that.
Because even in states, like you said, the credit and the funding options, like
Yeah.
I was on a fitness business where they had like 17K, 10K fitness programs.
Yeah.
And people are still doing it because like you could get on like a 3-year payment
No,
plan.
but that's what I mean. In the UK, you're not getting credit. Like,
Yeah.
that's what I mean. Like in America, you can get the 10, you can get the 15, 17K, and people will do it.
Yeah.
One, because they don't mind debt.
Yeah.
And they just have more cash.
Yeah.
In UK, it's like, it's just harder to find. It's harder to find those people to sell to. It's a
Yeah.
much smaller market, first of all, and there's just less cash
Yeah.
around. Like,
Yeah.
so
Even the people, I reckon, like Americans are so much friendlier for whatever reason. I don't know. At least the ones I've experienced.
I think that in the UK and Ireland, I think they are a lot more closed off to outside people.
Mm.
So like once they hear an accent, that's like, hey, I'm not trying to judge everyone here, but I can tell you from managing teams, like we were never able to find someone that wasn't like UK or Ireland that could be a top performer.
Oh, really?
Yeah, but like obviously we only tried a certain amount of people, and then maybe our bias has stopped us from hiring people sometimes. But I just found that if someone was UK or Ireland or Irish and they were selling into the UK and Irish market, they just always seem to perform better because I think people are just a lot more wary of like getting scammed. Or it's like when I worked when I worked for that Australian company, like the Irish accent sometimes would trigger people
in a bad way.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. Like, is this a scam? Like, where are you?
That's interesting.
Yeah. Or whatever they'd ask, like, where are you? I'd always be like, or no, where are you from? I'd be like, oh, I'm Irish. Is that okay? And then they're like, oh, yeah, of course it's okay. And I'm like, okay, cool. Move on. But like, it would be a thing. Because if you got like, imagine your internet connection. It's as well, this is phone. I think Zoom is like a whole different animal.
Yeah.
But like phone call, if you've got like a crappy connection and they're like weird accent, crappy connection, I'm getting scammed.
Yeah.
Like, this is a scam.
Yeah.
So I think that's also a factor, because I don't find it too bad selling to people in the UK.
I don't have much experience with the UK, to be fair. Mine's mostly been like American or Australian.
Yeah.
But yeah, I just feel like there is less opportunity for Aussies, like,
Oh, 100%.
because there's way less businesses as well, right?
Well, actually, I think it's nearly the opposite in a way, and this is from my perspective in fitness.
Yeah.
And the reason that I feel like this is I have lots of Aussie fitness businesses looking for people.
Yeah.
I have no one to give them.
That's a good point. Yeah. There's not as many like Aussie closers.
There's not as many Aussie closers, at least not at an appropriate level. I think it's a newer industry in Australia, or anyone that's like, they've either like left or they've moved. Well, fitness is a funny one as well, because fitness, a lot of people pass through fitness.
Yeah.
So you kind of have to catch people on the up, or they have to be someone that's dedicated to it.
Yeah.
And there's a lot less people that are dedicated to it.
I feel like whenever I have someone who wants to get into sales in Australia, I always tell them to start with fitness.
Yeah.
Because like there are more opportunities for fitness. I feel
there's
like.
loads. I think Australians spend more on their health and fitness. I could be making up things here, but I think they spend more on their health and fitness than anyone else in the world.
Really?
I think so.
I mean, it shows. Like, we're pretty good looking, so. But yeah, like, just build something like that, and then like, we got some other ideas down the track as well.
Yeah.
But I've done a lot of like the networking and like that sort of stuff, and like networking online is great, like jumping on a Zoom call or a virtual coffee or whatever. But like, I feel like when you meet people in person, it's definitely different. So like, that's my like long-term vision, is to just like have people like, hey, you're in Bali, I'm in Bali, let's connect. Like, even in that free Facebook group we got.
Yeah.
Like,
And you see people connecting already.
Yeah.
Like, it's
I'm
sick.
like, that is sick. That's exactly what I want.
Because it's such an isolated thing. Like, this year is the first time that I ever met anyone that I'd ever worked with online.
Yeah.
And I've been in the online space for like 4 or 5 years.
Yeah.
I just like hadn't bothered.
Yeah.
I was like,
Yeah.
But now I'm really enjoying it. And I think there's more and more people, like we're in Thailand for people that don't know that
Yeah.
right now.
Yeah.
But I think there's more and more people coming to Asia, which
Yeah.
is super cool.
Yeah.
Like, or I've only just become aware of it because I've been here for quite a
No,
while.
I feel like there's more. I don't know why. I mean,
Well, it's sick, like.
yeah.
So,
I mean, it is pretty cool.
yeah.
I mean, you live here, so you
Yeah.
would say that.
yeah. I've obviously decided it's the best place to be. So,
Yeah.
but it is very good. I just to bring it back to what you'd mentioned before, like, what do you think of people that are just like shitting on networking right now?
I think it's really funny because I also think, like, what's your definition of networking? Like, networking sounds kind of, it sounds kind of weird if you say, oh yeah, I'm going to jump on a networking call, like,
Yeah.
So, but all I think of networking is just genuinely building like your connections and your relationships. Like, no one calls you weird for making friends, but like, you're not going to say, oh yeah, I'm going to go make friends. Like,
Yeah, but if some weird kid approached you and was like, "Hey, do you want to be friends?"
Yeah.
You'd be like, "Well, you're fucking
Sorry,
weird."
buddy.
Yeah,
Yeah,
that is
yeah,
weird. You're
yeah.
weird for trying to make friends.
Yeah.
So, I think there's times,
Yeah.
and situations.
It's how you do it as well. Like,
Yeah.
the amount of like copy paste messages I get, hey, how are you? What do you want me
Yeah.
to say to that? Good.
Yeah.
Like, when I did it, like, mine was always personalized. Like, I'd just swipe up on people's stories, like, just genuinely interested in what they're doing. Like, there was a guy in Bangkok that I met up with. He posted a photo of like him eating steak and eggs. And I'd never spoken to him before.
Yeah.
I just swiped up. I was like, oh, sick, you bulking.
Yeah.
Like, and then from there, like, we spoke for like 6 months on and off, just
Yeah.
online. And then when I got to Bangkok, we connected and like
yeah.
had a few nights and like hung out. And so, yeah, I mean, I think networking's great, but like, you definitely need skill as well.
Yeah.
Like, I used to think the offer was more important than skill. I still think the offer is like just as important, but you definitely need skill to go with it.
Well, yeah. I think sometimes people underestimate, like, not to big myself up, but like how much better people can get as well. Like, they can say the offer, but I just know from experience, which is like tainted my perspective on this, that like I've been on offers where there's been months where I've sold at 3 times everyone else, like, for fitness. And that's like, they're like, I always think it's good to have that. I think the worst place you can be on an offer is like where you're the top person.
And
it's
you're
the
still
most
not making
unmotivating.
money. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, even if you're making money, I just
Yeah.
find that super unmotivating.
Oh, okay.
I want to be like lower than someone.
Yeah.
But if you're the top guy and you're at like 30%, you think that's the ceiling. You need someone ahead of you
To show
that's
you.
at like 50, and you're going, well, if they can do it, why can't I?
Yeah.
And I think a lot of people are on offers where they have no one to show them.
Yeah, that's a good point.
So they
Yeah.
think like, oh, it's the offer.
Mm.
And it's like, no, but you don't even know what's possible on this offer because you're leaving so much. That's why it's good when the business owner still takes calls, in my opinion, because or has like you can see their history because it sets such a high benchmark.
Do you feel like it's comparable though? Like, because the business owner should sell at a higher rate than the sales guy.
I think it's comparable in that if you're saying that nobody has money and they're selling at 70%, then you know at least 70% of the people have money.
Yeah, yeah.
Doesn't matter what they're saying to you.
Yeah.
So at least you can get over that limiting belief of like, oh, it's the
not
offer,
possible.
it's the leads.
Yeah.
It's just like, no. Yeah, they have they have an advantage over you that maybe you can never tap into, but they're selling them. So why can't you?
Yeah.
So you just need to keep upskilling.
Yeah.
So that's kind of the way that I view it.
I think most people need to upskill, to be fair.
Oh, yeah.
Like,
I think that, like,
even if you're on a sick offer, if you're on a great offer and you get better, it's not going to hurt you.
Yeah.
Like, you're just going to
100%.
do even better.
Yeah. I think the problem with it is the way it's done online is that, and I get it because you have to like sell your course and your course has to be like, here's the magic way to network, right? Not calling anyone out, like, but like, these are the things you should do. And I think they make it so formal.
Yeah.
That it's like,
yeah.
People, man, I get the same script.
Yeah. Can I ask you 3 questions?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Can you have 30 minutes to jump on a call so I can ask you 3 questions? Oh, how long have you been in thing? And I'm like, mate, go away.
Yeah.
I don't know you.
I agree. I will always say networking is important though, because like I didn't crack like my first 10K month until I started networking. Like that was the first solid offer I found. But I did it different to most people. Like most people do those copy paste or
Yeah.
some sort of template, like personalized comment, personalized compliment. Can I ask 3 questions? Pick your brain, something like that. I always just, well, not always. When I started, I did something similar, but then I realized that wasn't working. But if I go for the long term, like just swipe up something personal on their story,
Yeah.
just genuinely build a connection, then they'll come to me and be like, hey, are you looking for a role, by the way? Like this guy's
Yeah.
hiring.
Like,
But that came like 3-4 months later.
yeah. I don't think you need to have this like formal thing. Like, I think if I was to do a like a personal branding networking course, I think
Yeah.
like I would focus on like one, just start building your own brand. You don't need other people to build your brand. Just like start posting your ideas.
Yeah.
Start doing things.
Yeah.
Because and like maybe you can add people as friends, but you don't need to go messaging them and stuff. Like just like add them and then they'll see your stuff and just start doing shit.
That's a good point. Yeah.
Then if you're just active and you're doing things and you're expressing your opinions and I see something you say and I'm like, hey, I kind of agree with that. It's like non-invasive and I'm going to be like, oh, cool. I kind of know what this guy stands for. I know what he thinks. Sweet. Then just instead of getting in their inbox and asking for 30 minutes of their time with someone that's like way too busy to do that, you should just be commenting on their stuff, like be a supporter, be a fan.
Yeah.
Because they're going to start to recognize your name.
Yeah.
And they're going to see that you comment on things and they're going to see that you interact with them and that you support them. And then they might look at your page and they'll see that you post things and they'll be like, oh, cool. And I think it can just be like, it's just having a brand, being someone that stands out a little bit in the space, and then just connecting like indirectly, just showing support. Like you said, every once in a while you could swipe up and like just be like, oh, this looks cool. Or wow, that's a great win or whatever, right? And that it will just build over time. And then eventually you'll have a conversation. Like I've reached out to people where I'm just like, I see your shit all the time and you see my shit all the time. And we're commenting on each other's shit all the time. Like we should probably just like have a chat. Like, do you know what I mean? Like it's nearly like we know each other without knowing each other.
Yes. I do the exact same thing. So I did it with a guy where like we were going back and forth over like fitness trackers or whatever.
Yeah.
And we just like kept the convo on and off for like 3 months. And then I got to the point where I was like, hey dude, like we're probably overdue just jumping on a call, eh? And like we just jumped on a call and it's like, okay, sick. I hit it off with this guy. Like sweet. Then it's more memorable than just asking them 3 questions on a 20-minute virtual coffee and then you leave. And then nothing happens. I'm
also never getting on one of those with someone. like, there's no way. Like, if you're watching this now and you're thinking of asking me, no, it's like straight up no. I'm gonna say no.
Yeah.
So
but the posting the content thing is huge because like, what's the first thing you do when you get a message? You look at their profile, probably, if you have the time.
Yeah.
I look at their profile. Who is this guy? And if you see a bunch of posts about like good, valuable stuff, you'd probably take his message more seriously as well. Than just a random, like, some of the profile photos I see where I'm just like, oh man,
it's awful.
You can't be helped.
Yeah.
Like,
I have some tips on like personal branding that have served me well. And then what I was telling you about like posting, I think it's valuable for everyone. Is so this is actually something that I stole from Dan Henry. So I like had no personal brand really, other than I posted like cool results every once in a while. Got an odd argument on Facebook.
I remember seeing
you're wrong.
Yeah.
But so what ended up happening though was I was like, okay, I want to start a business. I'd quit like everything, and I was like, I want to start a business. I need to like start getting out there. And one as well, like I knew that I'd like argued with people a little bit in the online space just because I have my own opinions. I still think I was right, like, but just because I have my own opinions. And I wouldn't say it was arguing, it was more like debating.
Yeah.
But so I was like, right, I need to get myself out there. I need people to know who I am. Like, how do I do this as quickly as possible? Like, become as known as possible as quickly as possible. And I think my page grew by like 3.3 thousand people in like 12 weeks. So mission accomplished, I think.
Yeah.
So, but basically what I did was I watched a load of videos on branding, just read a lot of stuff on it. And I'd had conversations as well with like Dean Kazora, who's obviously got a really good brand as well online. And one of the main things that I did was it's from Dan Henry. Basically said, you need to, if you think of like superheroes, right? They always have like things that they're clearly for and things that they're clearly against.
Mm.
And he was like, imagine that you're a superhero. That's your brand, right? And you need to just write out a list, even if it's a mental list of things you're for and things you're against. And as long as you just keep repeating in everything you do, what you always hit either something you're for or something you're against. And you just keep doing that. That is your brand. That's what you're known as. So you can curate your brand by just writing, I am for this, 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 and this. And I'm totally against this, 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 this.
Yeah.
Like for me in the early day, it was like, I'm totally against people paying $3,000 a month to be in a group training program that's just like generalized training. Because I'd done that and I was like, well, it's a fucking ripoff.
Yeah.
Right. Because as you said, 80% of the training is just the same thing all over the place. You can find it in other places. Like you can. There's still lots of shit out there. So I'm not saying go for the shit cheap options. I'm saying just there's good people out there that can teach you. But that was like, I'm against that. And I just like push that. And then, you know, I'm for like affordable, really, really high quality training. Right. I'm against people in like depending on the situation, people having multiple offers for the sake of it. I'm for people making the most out of the offer they're in, looking inwards and thinking like, hey, I could be fucking better. I should do more. I should do my outbound. I should do my follow-up. I should do my referral. I should make the most of this opportunity so that I can be the top guy in this business. And then I can get promoted. I can start being the sales manager. I can start building. So like there's lots of things I'm for and against. I'm against 100% saying the price at the start of the call. I'm for doing the calls properly.
What if your values like change though? Like what if at the start of building the brand you believe in X and then you change your mind on it?
Just be honest, say I fucking changed my mind. I think you see funny examples now where people are
certain lesbians.
yeah. They're trying to gaslight everyone into thinking that they meant something different all along. Instead of just being like, hey, no, I changed my mind. It's just like, no, what I actually meant for the last 3 years was that something completely different.
I think it's so, like, I actually gain so much respect when people do change their mind publicly, especially if they've got a brand. Like, I've changed my mind on a bunch of shit.
Oh, yeah. I think it's normal. Like, and I think that's what's kind of good about when people point out that you're wrong. You're like,
you rethink it.
You argue
you challenge,
and then you're like, yeah, maybe fair enough.
And it forces you to like actually challenge your own belief. Like, oh yeah, why do I think that?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. And then when people point out, like, sometimes you can be a bit like absolute and then people can point out nuances and you're like, yeah, fair enough. I also think that there's like, I don't agree with, there's like the fucking like nuance police on Facebook sometimes that are like, they're just like, it's like, mate, you know those little black squares with the writing that, you know, I post those where it's just like, you can only fit so many words. Like, and I'm like, mate, I just didn't write it. That was like my low effort post. That took me a minute. I just didn't want to write an essay. Like, I get it. There's like a specific example where I'm wrong, you know, but and then they write an essay telling you you're wrong. And I'm like, yeah, I don't care.
Good for the algorithm though.
Yeah. Post on my shit if you want. Like, but
that's the thing I've realized is like half of it's just a game. Like the whole Facebook thing.
Yeah, I do think though, there's something we talked about. Like, and this is something I realized as well, because the second half of that thing I was saying, where like, okay, so be really clear on what you're for and you're against. The second most important thing is what I was saying to you with the engagement percentage. I think that's like gold that I've never heard anyone. I've seen it. Obviously, one person talked about it, and I was, and it was on a free. It was in a Facebook group. I randomly watched a video, and the guy was like talking about it, and I was like, how have I never heard this before? And so your engagement percentage is your engagement divided by your reach. You get a percentage, and the higher that is, the more the Facebook algorithm's going to push your stuff. So you can just like, I showed you my spreadsheet. Like, we track, well, Leah tracks it all for me, but we tracked everything, and you can see the best posts. And all we started doing was eliminating the bottom types of posts and just posting more of the top ones. Like, we realized like smiling at the camera in photos, like boosts it by a lot. And you realize what types of opinions get it.
Yeah.
But to bring that back around, like what I realized was, just because I've seen really awful examples of engagement posts where in the end I was just like, I would never work with you. Like, not all engagement's good. So it's a
Yes.
game, but
Yeah.
I think it's really important that you still stand behind what you
Their
say and you're
values.
willing to accept that it might piss some people off.
Yeah.
Like, at least think about it. Don't just
Yeah.
go for engagement for the sake of
Yeah.
engagement.
Yeah.
Because I'm sure I've turned off some people.
Yeah.
You know?
I mean, it's funny. I remember when I first saw your name like 2 years ago.
Yeah.
I don't know where I saw you, but I just thought, oh, this guy's a wanker. Like, and then like over the last few months, like in the collective and stuff like that, I saw your name more, and I was like, oh, this guy's sound.
Yeah.
But it's something that is interesting as well is that engagement isn't just liking comments.
Yeah.
Engagement is like people just staying on your post. So
Yeah.
there's a bunch of people that never like or comment your posts, but every time you post, they stay. And they stop.
You have to engage, or they read it.
Yeah.
Like that's all engagement. So like, I think that was like when we were talking about this before, and you were saying, you know, that you were just measuring it by likes and comments.
Likes and comments, yeah.
Yeah. But there's like way more to it than that. When you look at the numbers, there's like, you could have barely any likes and comments, and the post I put up yesterday as an example, I think it has like 160 engagements or something, but it only has like 60 likes and like 2 comments.
Yeah.
Do you know? So you'd be completely missing the fact that that post has like 20% engagement, which is like super high.
Yeah.
And you just miss it.
Yeah.
You'd be like, oh, nobody really likes it. But they do
it's
like
huge.
it.
Because I knew subconsciously that not everyone who sees my stuff likes and comments.
Yeah.
But now when you can actually see what that number is and that percentage, like it's super helpful. Because then you know what content to post moving forward. So like I changed my account recently so I can see that stuff.
The professional.
And it's helping, yeah. Yeah, it's good.
So I guess, what are you for and what are you against?
Ooh, good question. In the sales space, I'd say
it's a big question to throw on.
Yeah. I'll think on my feet. Screw it. I can always change my mind later.
Yeah.
I would say that I'm for building connections and relationships.
Okay.
Never going to be against that, I don't think. I'll say what I'm not against. I'm not against connections, relationships.
Yeah.
I'm not against learning how to handle objections.
Yeah, for sure.
I'm also not against pre-handling objections.
Yeah.
But that can go too far. Trying to pre-handle too much.
I think trying to disqualify.
Mm.
There's pre-handling and there's disqualifying.
Yeah. I guess it depends what you classify as like qualified, right?
So just to kind of go in on that, like the way I view pre-handling versus disqualification is, let's say you tell me, oh, I am super skeptical. Like, I'm so skeptical. I don't know if I can sign up for anything. I'm super skeptical.
Yeah.
And like the guy with the pre-handling, like the disqualification mindset is just like, they'll try to go at it and then they're like, oh, I'm not getting anywhere. Let's just end the call.
Yeah, no, I don't think that's a DQ.
No.
Yeah.
But that's like, well, even if someone says money to me, they're like, oh, you know, I don't really have money.
Yeah.
I'm like, but it's too early in the call.
Yeah.
I'm just like, oh yeah, look, that's not a problem at all.
Yeah.
Move forward. Because what I'll do is I'll try to understand, you know, what they've done before, why they failed, make sure that there's not underlying fears, solve them, make sure that the emotional value is there, that this seems like the best thing they've ever done, like, or that they could ever do. So like, that's me pre-handling money. I'm like, I can see the objection and I'm doing what I can to stop it. Or a better example maybe would be like the unsupportive partner. The disqualification mindset.
Yeah, that was interesting what you said the other day.
The disqualification mindset would be like,
reschedule.
Well, yeah, let's just reschedule and get them on the call. The pre-handling mindset that I would have would be like, bring it up when it's appropriate, you know, like a little bit into the call, and be like, I guess, like you mentioned before that your partner doesn't support you. Like, do you mind telling me a bit more about that? Has that been going on a long time? Like, has that kind of held you back before? Yeah. I guess my concern is like, what happens if your partner never supports you. So you can never take action. And this actually just keeps going. Like what would that be like? I haven't made them say like, oh, I'm definitely going to fucking do it, because that's like the disqualification mindset.
Yeah.
Like it's like pre-handling. I'm like, okay, no worries. I'm chipping away. We do our future pace. We do the consequence, and I'm like what happens? So this would be later on in the call. What happens if this keeps going? You know, you never fully commit to yourself. You never get the right help. You're always too scared to actually take action because you don't have your partner behind you. So you just keep letting other people decide if you can be happy or not. And this actually gets worse. You know, the weight creeps up. Like, what would that actually be like? So I'm taking what I think will be the objection at the end, and I'm chipping away at it, chipping away at it, chipping away at it. Pre-handling isn't like some magic moment where you make it go away. You just need to identify it, and then you just go at it bit by bit by bit by bit, so that at the end, they're like, yeah, my partner's going to be angry, but like, fuck him. I'm fucking doing this. Like, do you know? And that's like, people, they look for this magic moment. They want the person to be on their knees being like, yeah, I'll definitely do this. Nothing will stop me. I'm this is good. If this is the right fit, I'm 100% going to sign up. And you're just not going to get that from people. You need to, it's like you need to plant the seed in their mind and chip away. And it takes a ton of empathy and probably a ton of reps to be able to see when someone says something, you go, that's the objection I'm going to get at the end.
Yeah, and identify it.
And then you go, okay, how do I start chipping away at that? Not how do I get them to agree right now that they're not going to say that at the end, or else I'm ending the call. That's where it goes too far. People are like...
At what point, though? Like, let's say you get... Like, let's say out of 10, you get the partner objection 7 times. And you do that 7 times, and every time they go, oh, look, I got to chat to the partner first. Like, do you just keep wrapping it out? There's only 2 types of partner
objections.
Go on.
There's a real one.
Yeah.
That you can't stop.
Yeah.
And there's every other one.
Yeah.
Right? So I'll give you like a statistical, it's an anecdote, but I have stats behind this.
Yeah.
So I measured our objections across the team I manage for like hundreds of calls.
Yeah.
Like months. And I didn't do anything to prevent partner objections. Like, other than what I'm talking about. Like, if it came
chipping
up,
away.
I chipped away at it.
Yeah.
But I didn't do this like big, is your partner on board? Do they need to be here? Blah, 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 blah. And I got partner objections. Like, out of the fails that I had, only 3% of my fails were partner objections.
And it's on a fitness offer too.
That's on a fitness offer selling to women. And people are like, oh, if you're selling to women, you definitely have to do it, blah, blah, blah. 3% of my objections that ended up in a fail were a partner objection.
That's wild.
And the average on the team was 17%.
Jeez.
And some of the people on it did like pre-handling partners.
So then they end up creating it.
But it's just like, it doesn't make any difference. I used to do it before. I know it makes no difference. Because if they're going to give it to you because it's real, you're going to get it anyway.
Yeah.
There's no way around it.
Yeah.
And you may as well try to get them so on board that they fight the fight. That they're like, no, I have to fucking do this. Like, I have to do this. Because they're your greatest weapon when you send them off to the partner.
Yeah.
But if you send them off at the start of the call and their partner's not supportive, the partner's going to be like, no, I'm not getting on a call with you. Don't do it.
Yeah.
So we focus on them. The other type of partner objection is just like, I'm not 120% bought in. So this is a big decision when I'm not 120% bought in. So I focus on the person. How can I get them to be the most bought in that I can possibly get them? How can I make them feel like they can't fail? How can I make them feel like this will be the best investment they've ever made in their life? Because when you do that, you just don't get the objection at the end anyway. If someone really, really, really wants to do something, like really wants to do it, they're not going to say, I need to speak to my partner. They're just not going to say it.
That's what I was thinking about before when you were speaking. Is like, they've probably convinced their partner of something before that was like a big expense or whatever, but they really wanted it. And so they made it happen. Yeah. So it's a good point. Yeah.
What, weddings? Men don't want to spend 50K on weddings.
This feels personal.
What? But
feels why, like there's a story there.
No, I'm joking. But why do they do it, right? Because the partner wants it, and you're like, okay, well, I love you, so we can do that.
Yeah.
Like, do you know, if most people, if your partner came to you and were like, I really, really, really need to do this thing. Like, I really want to do this thing.
Yeah.
This is like, I'm emotionally very attached to the idea of doing
Yeah.
this thing. Most partners are going to be like, even if it's tight, they're going to be like, are you sure?
Yeah.
Yes. Okay. Well, let's do it.
Do you feel like people who don't have partners themselves or haven't had partners themselves might find it harder handling partner objections because they can't relate as much? The reason I ask is when you were saying that, I was thinking like, yeah, you've had examples in your own life where maybe there was something you spoke about with your partner,
Yeah.
but then you move forward.
Yeah.
Whereas if you're like a 18-year-old kid who like hasn't had that experience, you think that a partner objection is this massive thing, but in reality, like if two people are together and one of them really wants something, like the other guy's not going to be a dick and just be like, no, you
Yeah.
can't.
Yeah.
like they're not a tyrant. Like
No,
they're in a
yeah,
relationship.
you're together.
Yeah,
You're in a relationship for a
Yeah.
reason. Like,
yeah,
you
Yeah.
know, it's not like
Yeah.
they're not like the enemy. They're
Yeah.
like another person that's part of that.
But I
thing,
think
like,
before I had a relationship, like I kind of thought in my mind, oh yeah, if the partner's not on board, oh it's not happening. Because I used to,
yeah,
like I would think that way.
yeah, yeah. It is funny, like, but I always use it. Like, you hear some people say like partner objections aren't real, and I'm like, no, but they definitely are. And the reason I know that they're real is like Lee can buy whatever she wants, but like she's not going to drop 5K without at least being like, can I do this right now?
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah.
is this like something that like are the finances, or do I have to move things around? Like, what's this look like?
Yeah. The best case is just getting a deposit, isn't it?
Yeah.
Like if it's a real
If it's
partner
there's two
objection.
things I do if it's a real partner objection that they're like, no, I 100% need to talk to them. It's like, yeah, there's no point in burning that bridge.
Yeah.
Like pushing them and pushing them,
Yeah.
because then they're going to be like, do you know what? Actually, fuck off.
Fuck you.
Yeah. Just fuck off.
Yeah.
Right? There's two things I do. So the first one is I coach them on how to speak to their partner. So you say, have you ever spoken to your partner like you spoke to me? Have you told them how much this is impacting you? Have you told them what you want your life to look like? And have you told them what your life will look like if you don't make a change? Like, have you actually sat down and had a serious conversation with them? No. Okay, we'll start there. Because if you go to them and you explain the context of the situation, and then you tell them about how you really believe in this program, you think it's really going to help, you think it's a perfect fit because XYZ, they're going to have context for why you want to spend that money, as opposed to it just being a price tag. And as opposed to it just being like, oh, but you know, you could just go for walks more or something. Like, you need to actually explain it to them.
Yeah.
And the second thing I always do then is just take that deposit, but frame it. The thing that people do wrong with deposits, like, I'm of the mindset that, you know, there's going to be people there saying, oh, you must be pushy and stuff, but it's not that case at all. But like, I'm of the mindset that like everyone I speak to, I try to get money off them. Like, I had a month before, I remember, and this is a record, but I think I had like 15 deposits and then sales and then some fails. And that was because like pretty much everyone that I spoke to, I would try to get to a point where it was like, okay, but besides from this thing, you 100% want to do the program, right? Yeah, okay. And then the mistake people make with deposits, and they do it badly, is they say that you're like giving a deposit to hold your place. And everyone knows that's a fucking lie.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's just like a pushy thing.
Yeah.
But let's say the partner one as an example, I would say, like, are you open to me helping you with this? Yeah. Well, what we like, the main thing that we found to be the most helpful is that we could actually put down something really small today. And look, it's not a deposit. It's not to hold your place.
Oh, right. Okay.
It's nothing like that.
Yeah.
You're always welcome to work with us.
Yeah.
But what it is, it's an emotional commitment from yourself. And when you go to your partner and you say, hey, like, this is why this is important. I really need to do this. This is what will happen if I don't do this. And I want to do this so much that I actually put down some small money, but I respect you enough that I came to you to talk to you about this before I fully committed.
Yeah.
When you go to them and you have that conversation, they're going to know how serious you are. And they're also going to appreciate the fact that you respected them.
Yeah.
And what I can do, this is the other part of deposits. So it's like emotional commitment. The other part of like being really good at getting deposits is it has to be a value exchange. So what the next part of that would be, so if you do that, what I can do is I'll actually give you some of the resources we only give to clients. I'll get you set up with some things so that you can
okay.
start moving forward today.
Yeah.
There's always going to be things in the business that you're
Yeah.
allowed to share.
Yeah.
So I always do. My whole goal with a deposit is I make you feel like you've signed up.
Yeah.
I get you as far in the door as I can.
Yeah.
So that you feel like, oh, I've actually started something.
It's funny you say that because I've been doing that a lot, like on the offer I've been on for the last month is like when they don't have the money and they can only do a deposit, I say, look, everything you said pretty much, let's do a deposit for those reasons. But then I'll also give them access to like 5 of the modules.
Yep.
But I did that without even thinking about it.
Yeah,
but that's a good
it's
point.
It's a value exchange. Yeah. It's like, because that gives them a reason.
Yeah.
You're like, this is you taking the first step.
Yeah.
You're taking control. And what I'll do is I'll actually help you to start moving forward so that in 2 months' time, when you have the money, you'll at least be on your journey as opposed to still waiting. Because if they, and I'll even get them to sign the agreement sometimes.
True.
Like, I'm like, you're in.
Yeah.
You are in.
Yeah.
Like, we're just waiting for the time, but you're fucking in the door. Like, so you have to tie them back. You can't just jump to that, though. It's like, it has to come through the conversation. And then you're like, look, before I see if I can help you here, you like 100% want to do the program. Like, it's okay if you don't. You can tell me right now if you don't. And they're like, no, I definitely want to do it. And you're like, okay, well, look, this is what we could do.
Yeah.
So that's like, you frame it with that, and it becomes this like emotional commitment, value exchange. You're in the program, you've started, and your likelihood of signing them up is like way higher.
Yeah, because they already feel part of it.
Yeah,
and then if they're in the community as well, and then...
if you have a Facebook group, a client Facebook group, and the business owner doesn't mind, you throw them in there.
Yeah,
and then you have your follow-up date, and if it flops at the follow-up date, you're like, oh, sorry, I have to remove you from everything. But that's you know what I mean? Because you're like, hey, look, I gave you this under the impression that, and you're not angry with them.
Yeah.
But you're like, I'm still going to follow up with you and make sure you're okay. But like, I can't leave you in with the clients.
Yeah.
When you haven't been able to sign up. Like, but that's not a problem. It's okay. We're still we can still help each other.
Yeah.
So yeah, I think that's one of the main things with the deposits that people, they go, can you give me some money? The person's like, no.
Fuck you.
Yeah, go away.
Yeah.
And it fails.
So I wanted to talk about what we got coming up. Are we going to release the name? We're going to say what it's called?
Yeah, I think we can release the name.
Well, no, I'll ask you, how did we come up with the name?
Well, Leah came up with the name, so we can give credit where credit is due. So yeah, the name is Kosabai, which obviously is inspired by the fact that we're both in Thailand.
Yeah.
Ko is the word for island, and Sabai is like a saying here, I'm sure she knows, where it's essentially like no worries, be happy, kind of thing.
Yeah.
So kind of like a relaxed, be happy, no worries island is kind of the vibe. Which I think
is cool, because like closing is very, like, it can be pretty stressful. Like, you know, I used to get stress headaches quite a bit just from like closing for 8 hours. So like, I think it's good, you know, to have like a break from that.
But even like the story I was telling you earlier about, I'm not going to go into too many details because you never know, he could watch this and he might recognize it, but like the guy who was obviously struggling and quit and stuff like that. And I was thinking of that story, and I was thinking about some other people that I know, like, because I've been networking more now, or I know people from my community, my mentorship.
Yeah.
And I think like mental health struggles is like nearly at epidemic levels in closing among the lower tier.
In closing specifically,
the people that are trying to get into it. Because I think it's like, it's stressful and it's performance. And if the performance isn't coming and you've got no proof to back up that like you're good or that you know what you're doing, I think people really struggle in that. But that just kind of came into, I was thinking about it, and you were saying like you used to get the stress headaches, and it's like a lot of,
or another thing as well, like for young guys, like, or young girls as well, like, you know, for me, like I dropped out of university to do this. Like there's some people that drop out of their degree, which like their parents have like been like praying for them to do, and they drop it, and then they get into closing, and then they don't do well, it's like there's so much pressure
Yeah,
outside of just themselves as well.
yeah, that's intense. Like, yeah, I hadn't even. It's true though. Like people, that's probably we're going a little bit on tangent, but I think it's important to talk about. It's good. Like, I think that's one of the big problems with like the bizopification of to make up a word, the bizopification
Of closing.
of clothing.
Yeah, definitely.
Because there's no fucking guarantees that you're going to do well in
Yeah.
this.
There's some people that are just not born for sales. Like,
no, definitely not. Like, definitely not. And if you're like pretty much everyone that joins my mentorship, like if they have a job and they're trying to get into, like I actively don't try to get people in that aren't in sales.
Yeah.
Like, but they just join sometimes,
Yeah.
especially when they see you like on a podcast or
Yeah,
something. They're like, I
yeah.
like this guy.
Yeah,
I'm gonna
yeah.
join. And it's okay because we help them. But if they have a job, they're like, I'm gonna quit the job and go all in. I'm like, don't. Like, definitely do not do that, please. I'm like, just let's start practicing around your job, and we'll get you good, and then we can get you into an offer that's like super part-time.
See, there's two sides though, because like I don't disagree with what you're saying, but I quit McDonald's and I did it at the worst time. I just moved out of home when I was 18, moved out with a mate, had like a bond to pay, all this stuff, and I quit Macca's because I had one day where I made like 2 weeks worth of salary from McDonald's, and I was like, fuck it, I'm going all in. And then because of that, like I then made more money from it and transitioned.
But wait, you said something there, which is exactly the point. Like, you made money.
Yes.
So then you made a decision.
That's true.
There's people out there that are just like,
yeah,
I like this thing. I'm just going to quit everything and try.
Yeah, that's true.
And you were like,
yeah,
hold on.
Make
please.
a sale first.
Let's at least make a little bit of money.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
But it's funny, when I was talking earlier, like when we moved from Ireland to Malta, and when I think back on it, we were fucking crazy because we had like €500 and we just started the business, like the online coaching. And the first week we had no money.
Yeah.
Like no money coming in when we done this. And we made 10K in the first week. And I was like, when I think back on it, I'm like, if I didn't make that 10K, we had nothing. So that was, I broke my own, but that we had been making money before that. To go back to that point again, it was just that I'd like changed up the business model. But
yeah, people don't sell that in their biz offer for closing.
Yeah, and but then as well, the problem is like you get into the space and you have like, are you all in or are you all out? Like this fucking like rah, you got to go to war talk, which I get, like, you know, you got to try, but like people confuse who that message is for. And you're like, you're just a baby in the space and you haven't even started. That message isn't for you. Like, yeah, you have to work hard, but like you still need to be able to feed yourself. Like, and have a job, like have a life.
Yeah.
Like when you're in the space and maybe you're doing okay and you're like surviving a little bit, and then it's like, okay, yeah, I need to go all in on this to like make it what it needs to be or what I want it to be. So I think the messaging sometimes gets lost on who they're talking to.
Yeah.
I think that's like probably where people go wrong.
But even like if we had an event where it was like 4 people newer to the space, right?
Yeah.
Like I think for a lot of guys that come in, that's why I like networking as well. Because if you're just a random dude and you've gotten into high ticket closing and you don't know anyone and you're not making money, like you're probably gonna quit. Like,
yeah,
most likely.
Yeah. Especially when the 10 people that you messaged asking if you can ask 3 questions,
all like, fuck off, buddy.
Leave me alone.
Yeah.
But yeah, all of that to say, like, yeah, mental health, I think in the space, because it's remote, because there's like no connection, because people are out there shitting so hard on networking, which I totally get as well. Like some of it's nonsense.
Yeah. Like anything though, you can be bad and good at
things, like you can be bad and good at making friends. Like
yeah.
You know, that's the truth of it.
Yeah.
Unfortunately for some people. But yeah, so I guess that was probably one of our, like, we've obviously like met here in Thailand. We talked online a little bit before, and then you were randomly coming to Thailand, and it was like, oh, cool.
Yeah.
But like, I guess that kind of lent itself to us coming up with this idea, because we've both lived that remote life where I didn't know anyone in the space when I started. Like, I'm the only person I was going to say in real life, but we know each other in real life
Yeah.
now. But like, that's how I would have spoke about this before.
Yeah.
Like real life and like internet life.
Yeah. Yeah.
Like I would have been like, I'm the only person in real life that I know
Yeah.
that does this.
Yeah.
I don't know anyone else that does this in like person. So,
And there's a lot of people like that.
oh yeah,
And it's huge. Like since I've come traveling, the last month and a half have been like some of the happiest times because I'm like actually meeting people that like relate. Because it's like they're also in sales.
Yeah.
They get it. Whereas like people in Brisbane, you know, where I'm from, or like they're in a different world, you know?
Yeah. Well, I
And
like straight up struggle to maintain my friendships from before.
yeah.
Like here, I get on really well with my friends because I think they're like all open. We've all traveled here. They're all
Yeah.
like doing something.
Yeah.
But my friends at home, like, they don't get what I do at all. They don't relate to it. If anything, they get annoyed. They'd ask you questions about it and then get annoyed that you talked about it.
Mm.
You know, and you're like,
Yeah.
well, don't ask if you don't want to know. Like,
Yeah.
because it's just so abstract. It's like fake internet
It is
money.
weird.
Like, oh,
Like-
it is weird. You get paid obscene money to talk on the phone with
Yeah.
someone. Like,
Yeah.
talking on the phone with middle-aged women, and you're making like 200 an hour. Like, well, who the fuck are you?
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah.
So I do get it. Like, but it is cool then when you meet someone like in the space in person and you can just like chat about it.
Yeah.
Chat about it far more than you'd talk about like normally
Yeah.
because like otherwise you've no one to speak to about it.
Yeah.
So
Even the shit I've learned over the last, you know, few days, just when we're having breakfast or whatever,
yeah.
and we're just talking about like Facebook reach and stuff.
Yeah.
Like that's where I learned that.
yeah.
Like
yeah,
it's from those conversations outside of like
they're
the
just
co-
random
yeah,
conversations.
just daily
like,
things.
yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. So and I guess that's the goal, that's the vision for what we want to do is obviously we're both here traveling around. Well, I live here. You're traveling around
Yeah.
Asia. And we can see the benefits of like being in person. You learn so quickly from people in
Yeah.
comparison to like when
Way
it's just
quicker.
online and you're paying for like, and that's all like mentorship and stuff is great. But like when you're
Yeah.
in person and you spend a prolonged period around someone
Yeah.
and they have knowledge that you don't have, you just pick it up really fast. And I think everyone in the space, what's cool about the space is that everyone has their own kind of unique story about how they got into it. And then every business has its own unique thing that it, like some people, you hear of like the weirdest funnels, the weirdest processes for sales. And then you talk to someone that works in one of these and they're like, oh, well, what we do is this, this, and this. And you're
Mm.
like, I've never heard that before in my
Yeah.
life. And then it's working really well and you learn from people, or the like the networking. You learn from, I know you, he knows you, we
Yeah.
know each other.
Yeah.
Like the connections happen so much quicker when you're just in person and you're
Yeah.
talking to each other.
Definitely.
So yeah, I think it's going to be really cool. I guess to tell people what Kosabai even is, like what is it? Like what are we planning?
Yeah, it's basically to have like in-person events, masterminds,
Mhm.
a week where you can just immerse yourself like with other people that are
Yep.
in the same space as you, want to be better, have like that high frequency, that high energy.
Yeah.
And yeah, just like when you walk away, actually have learnt a bunch, had a sick week as well, like have a lot of fun.
Yeah.
And like form relationships that'll last you, you
Yeah.
know, for a long time.
Yeah.
I think that's the goal. So like we got our first one in Bali. It's like a
Mhm.
month and a bit from now.
Yeah.
So we got like 7 other guys coming, 7 people in sales, rented
Yeah,
out
yeah.
a villa, gonna get some content.
Got a chef.
Yeah, got a
All
chef.
the food done, activities,
I had to tell-
sales training.
I had to tell her we need more meat, more
Yeah.
steak. So
Yeah, so it's going to be sick. And it's like, it's one of those things. It's like when you meet someone in person and they enter real life, you're going to help each other just so much more.
Yeah.
Like you're going to be like, if a job comes up or something, or like an opportunity, you're
Oh,
going to be like,
I'm
hey,
so happy.
I know you. Yeah.
I'm so happy you mentioned that. I had a real life example of that from
Yeah.
Bangkok. The guy I mentioned, he told me, "Hey, lead flow's like just absolutely shat the bed. Like
Mhm.
I'm getting like 1 call a day. I need another offer."
Yeah.
And since then, I've sent him like 6 jobs.
Yeah.
Like every time I see one that's like relevant to him,
Yeah.
like he's got finance background. So
Yeah.
every time I see something, I'm like, send.
Yeah. Yeah.
Because like I've got that in-person
Because you
relationship.
know him, like
Exactly.
it's not just like a face behind a
Yeah.
computer or like a coffee chat with Zoom. Like it's like a real person.
Yeah, 100%.
Yeah. So I think it's like the whole point is like, yeah, learn from each other, connect with each other, it's just going to be good for people's head, I think, to just see the real people that are involved. That was one of those, like we were talking about, like when I joined the collective, shout out to Patrick Lang.
Yeah.
If you want to join, hit me up so I can get the referral fee.
I'm in it too, so you can also
No,
hit me
don't
up.
contact him. I want the referral fee. I said it first. So, so yeah, basically, I think one of the coolest things with that was like, you're fucking like arguing with people over the internet, talking shit, and then it's like you're on a Zoom with them, and Patrick's there, and everyone else is there, and you're like,
Yeah.
oh, you actually seem pretty nice.
Yeah.
You seem cool.
That's literally what happened with you though.
Yeah,
Because
that's what
I
I
just
mean.
saw you I just jumped on a call. I wasn't even paying attention, to be honest.
Yeah.
And I saw you there, and I don't know what you're talking about. But then that was like the first moment. I was like, oh, Diarmuid's like actually kind
Seems
of cool.
alright.
Yeah,
Yeah,
he's
it
not that
seems nice
bad.
enough. Like,
Yeah.
So like, but meeting people then in real life is like another level to that. Like, and it's like real people. And it's like, oh, we're all actually the same. Like, even if you don't connect with someone online, like if you're in a room together, you'd have so much to connect
Yeah.
with. Like, especially because when we're all in our little bubble online, everyone's in the space. So everyone's just like talking the same thing. And then when you see someone in person and you're like, hold on, I can relate with you so much more than like a lot of other people in real life. I keep saying real life.
Yeah.
So then you do have a connection, even if you didn't think you did.
Yeah.
You do actually.
Yeah.
When you're in the real world, because you're like, fuck, we actually have something we can really talk about here with a real conversation. So I think I'm excited for it. I think it's going to be sick.
Another thing as well is like even subconsciously, like I remember when we had the Gold Coast event, it was part of the collective, and I met up with guys like James and Laura, like guys that are crushing it, and even just like sitting across from them and seeing like, oh yeah, that's real. Like he's crushing it. That's actually like real. Just like seeing people in real life that are doing really well, making great money, and being like, oh, he's like not that much smarter than me.
And it's just super. He's a normal dude.
Yeah, like
or she's a normal girl.
Yeah,
like, you're just like, oh,
it builds your belief of like what's actually possible.
Yeah, Oh, 100%.
Like
yeah, I think that's. Yeah, I think it's a whole nother dimension to it when it starts to all become like very real. So I think it's going to be sick.
It's also like who you're in, what the environment is that you're in, right, is going to have a massive effect. So if you can surround yourself with like 7 other killers at sales, even if it's just for a week, like we were saying, the amount you're going to learn, the amount you're going to level up just from that 1 week, and then also knowing them longer term as well.
Yeah.
So I think that's a massive value add for people.
And that's I think a big part of what we're going to do is like it's not just the event, but it's the community that gets built behind that. So like connecting people, like if you've done an event, you're part of that Kosabai kind of community.
Yeah.
When there's another event on, people get added. There's like more people to it, and at least then you also share something in common with each other. You can mix. You could attend another event somewhere else because it's going to move around. So I think it's going to be sick. It's going to be very, very cool. I think it's going to help people a lot just with the, like, again, it comes back to that thing of like, I didn't network at all. So like really all I had in the space was just like animosity towards other people. I was like, like everyone just disagrees and there's just like arguing and everyone's my enemy.
Yeah.
And then it was when it started to become more real that I started to know people. I was like, do you know what? Actually, this is fun.
Yeah.
It's like a cool space. I like it. And you feel better about it then.
Yeah.
You're like, oh, I actually like this space. And then it turns into like you're working together. You're like your own little team of people that you know, and you're like helping each other and doing this and doing that, and we can do it. And it's true, like it's especially true when you get in with people that are like higher level, because I have lots of opportunities and then someone else has lots of opportunities, and you're like, hey, this business that I could make 10K a month off came to me, but I don't want to do it. Do you want it? And you're not even passing like little things to each other. You're like, hey, here's $100,000 a year.
Yeah.
Go.
Yeah.
And it gets crazy then. Like you're like, oh fuck, okay.
And even just like being able to just, because like I feel like a lot of people in closing, in sales, like we're quite entrepreneurial, business minded. Like we actually enjoy talking about it.
Yeah.
Whereas like if you talk about closing with like your family or like a normal friend, At least in my experience, it's like, oh yeah, cool. Anyway, so for lunch yesterday we
Yeah,
had,
yeah, yeah,
but
yeah.
it's like just to be able to, while we're eating or whatever, just talk about random business
Bits
shit.
of it.
It's
Yeah, yeah,
sick.
yeah. No, it
It's
is
good.
cool. But yeah,
Yeah.
I think it's gonna be very cool. I'm looking forward to it. So then after Bali, we've got.
Got details on the next one.
I think we can say it. I think it's probably going to be sold out before you've even applied. So I think there's Pattaya, which is where we are now, probably in November. But if there's spaces left, I'd be surprised. I think
Yeah.
it's going to sell out pretty much straight away.
Yeah.
Which is pretty cool. And that's as far as we planned. But there's going to be ones coming. So if you're interested, I think definitely hit us up. Definitely look into it. I think it's going to be cool. We're going to be doing them fairly regularly. I think we were talking about maybe every 6 to 8 weeks. Yeah. Moving around Asia. So yeah, it's going to be sick.
I think there's a massive like gap for it. Like
Oh,
there
yeah,
are a
100%,
few
like,
people doing it, but definitely not on this side of the world that I've seen.
yeah.
Around Asia, Australia. I
No,
haven't
not
seen.
at all. Like I've only seen. I mean, we can probably say the names. Like there's like the Nomadic House.
Yeah.
And that was a month, which I think is something we talked about before. Like, well, I've got, fiance and a dog, so I don't think she'd be too happy if I was doing months at a time off.
See ya.
So yeah. I don't think I'd want to do a month. Also,
Yeah.
a month is like,
You get sick of each other.
oh yeah, I was
by
gonna
the
say,
end of the
like,
month.
fucking a month is like,
You again.
that's a gamble. Like, we're talking. It's cool to connect and like to know each other and meet each other, but
Yeah.
like, I don't want to share a house with 7 random men for a month.
Worst
I'll be
case, if you
real.
hate people, it's only a week. Worst case, like
No, but a week is still, you're still in holiday mode. It's fun.
Yeah.
You can like, you're sharing, you're doing activities. Also, my social battery would just burn out after
Yeah.
a month. Like I'd be
Yeah.
like, no, I need to spend like 3 days in my room alone.
Yeah.
So yeah, we don't want to do a month. I think the week is going to be a
think a
really
week's
sweet
good.
spot. It means that you can just go on holidays.
Yeah.
It's a holiday. You can reduce your call volume
Yeah.
without it being weird, or you can still keep taking calls. Like,
Yeah.
it's like personal preference. It's up to you what you do, but it's just like that kind of sweet spot of it's short. Doesn't matter your situation. You can make it work. Obviously, it's a lot lower investment, and we're just going to jam it with value as opposed
Yeah.
to it being like spread out over a really long time.
Yeah.
So I think we're still going to try to have as much value as possible in that week. And this one is all men, but I don't necessarily think
No,
has
it
to
won't
be. I think
always
it'll be
no.
open
Yeah.
to anyone from.
It's funny because I had a female or
Yeah.
a woman, a girl, like
What do you call them?
Yeah. reach out to me. I was like, "Oh, men only, eh?" And for this one, because it was like 6 other dudes, I was like, "Yeah, it is for this one." But like, we'll definitely have some.
Yeah, well, I
some
think the
with both,
next
I
one
think.
anyway.
Yeah.
Should have. Well, there's like, so from my community alone, I think like 20 people expressed interest. I'd say about a third of them.
Yeah.
Girls. So like I imagine there'll be some, and some of them are like proper digital nomad types.
Yeah, that's sick.
So that I'd say they'll definitely do it. If they said they'll do it, they'll definitely do it because they travel all the time anyway.
Yeah.
So I think that's sick. But even the one in Bali is pretty cool. The like indirectly, because he signed up through you, Jake Watson.
Oh yeah.
Shout
yeah.
out to Jake Watson if you're watching this. But he's going to the one in Bali. And he's in my community.
Yeah.
So that when I found that out, I was like, "Oh, sick!"
Yeah.
That's
and I didn't
really
even
cool.
tell him you were coming.
I just seen the name on the thing, and I was like, "Oh shit,
Yeah,
that's
yeah.
really cool." I'm looking forward to seeing him in person.
Yeah. No,
So
I think it'll be good.
yeah, maybe if he's lucky, I'll give him some free coaching.
Yeah.
But yeah, so that'll be sick. I think it's gonna be real cool, and I think
If we can have like guest speakers as well, like, you know, for the first one, we'll obviously have probably you do something, and then if we can get some people come in for a day or two, you know.
Yeah, well, there's some
future
people.
ones.
There's some people in Bali, like, there's some good people in there that we already know in Bali that we could potentially get in, which would be really cool.
Even stuff like outside of sales potentially, like we could get someone come in and talk about mindset or, you know, whatever.
And Bali was going to be full of. Like
get a meditation
we should definitely
coach.
look into actually. We should put a bit more effort looking into who's there that we could get, because you could get some really cool workshops. I think actually.
Yeah.
So yeah, we should definitely look at that because that would be sick. And And then yeah, for the other ones, well, the next one after, realistically, it's probably going to be a lot of people from my community.
Yeah.
So I'll do a lot of the sales
Yeah.
trainings, like,
Yeah.
because that's what they're paying for
Yeah.
anyway, So,
Sick.
and then the next one after that will probably, when we do decide where it is, again, we should definitely be looking at either bringing someone in for the whole thing and them being part of it.
Yeah.
Someone that can bring a lot of value, or looking at what experts are available and bringing them in. I think it would be really cool.
I think that's something that'll be cool is like how we manage who's coming. So
Yeah.
we make sure that like there's value for everyone, So
Yeah.
like even if you're new to sales, obviously there's a bunch of value learning from someone who's done it for a while.
Yeah.
But then for them as well, like the value that they would get from the event as well.
Yeah, and that's what we were saying, like the peer-to-peer. I think that's unique in the space. I don't see anyone really doing like peer-to-peer coaching.
Yeah.
And it's something I was obviously playing around with the idea of like creating a school community that was peer-to-peer. I just don't know how you'd get people to buy into the idea, but if they did, I think they'd love it, because there's a lot of people out there that love teaching. And I think it deepens your understanding of something when you have to teach it.
Yeah, I agree.
Because also I tell people things like now I'm like figuring it all out, but like I remember at the start when I would like tell someone something and they would do it a slightly different way, and I'd be like, no, it's definitely wrong. And they're like, why? And I'm like, I don't know, but I do know it's wrong.
Yeah.
And then over time you start to like verbalize it.
Yeah.
You're like, no, because when you do this is going to happen.
Yeah.
Like it starts. And you know what actually it really made me realize was that a lot of the things I did naturally aren't natural things to do.
Yeah.
And I just thought like there was so many things I didn't teach people that I did, like back when I was first like starting teaching. Like I was managing teams before, and I just didn't teach them some of the things I did because I was like, well, that's obvious.
And do you find that sometimes they point out things that you do that you don't even know you do?
Yeah,
Because I had that where they're like, "Oh, I notice you do this." Like you constantly like acknowledge what they say, or you like summarize briefly what they say. And I'm like, "Oh yeah, I do that." It's just unconscious.
It's funny, yeah. It's those. I often find one of the things that like I did naturally that people completely miss is like it's not anything that's on the script, or it's not like a question. It's like little moments that like the way I reacted to something they said.
Hey, my brother died.
Yeah. Like
okay,
cool,
gotcha.
Makes sense. But also, it's like when fitness, oftentimes people come to you with like, they're like, oh, I have hypothyroidism. And if you react weird to that, or you don't do anything with it, they're like, oh, is this a problem? And you don't bring it up again. Yeah. So I'm just like, they're like, oh, I have hypothyroidism. And you're like, okay. No, that makes sense that you'd struggle. Like we've helped thousands of women with hypothyroidism. So I definitely understand the struggles with that. So yeah, like what have you tried then? So it's just like, it's like how you react when they give you a bomb.
Yeah. Yeah.
Do you diffuse it?
Yeah.
Or do you just go, okay.
Yeah. It's true.
Like little things.
Because if you did the contrast of that and you're like, oh, what's hypothyroidism? They would be like, oh, you can't help me. You don't even know what that is.
Oh, really? Oh no.
Yeah.
So it's like, but that's like one example, but there's loads of those, especially I find in fitness a lot. Like there's lots of moments where people say things that are like, they say like mad things, because they're trying to exclude themselves, because this is what goes on in their head. And if you just don't diffuse it like instantly, it's not even a question. It's just like how you react to the information. They're like, oh fuck. It's like when people say, nothing I do works. I can't lose weight. And people are like, oh, okay. And they just move on. And you're like, that person's mind is obviously fucked around their ability to lose weight. Like, so the way you react, the example I always give to them so they can remove themselves from the situation is like, if I went to my dentist, like say you were my dentist and I went to you and my teeth were all rotten. They were falling out of my mouth.
Yeah.
And I said, I floss, I brush, I use mouthwash every single day, 3 times a day. I'm doing everything I can. And the dentist was like, okay, and moved on, I'd be like, oh, well, I'm fucked.
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah.
but really, I mightn't be doing everything. I might just think I am, or I might
Mm.
just feel like whatever, or I might just be saying it because I'm protecting my ego.
Yeah.
And if you react weird to it, or you don't you don't get rid of it, I'm going to be like, oh, this guy doesn't know shit.
Yeah.
Right?
Even if you don't consciously think that, subconsciously you're thinking that.
Yes, no, that's what it's a subconscious
Yeah.
feeling.
Yeah.
Like the way that the dentist would react would be like, well, like, hold on.
Mm.
If you were doing all of that, you 100% would not be in this situation.
So
So
do you say that when they're like, if they say I've tried everything, nothing's worked?
I say, well, like, everyone can lose weight. So it's not your fault if you don't know, but like, everyone can lose weight. So it always comes down to either something you're doing or not doing.
Right.
And this isn't a blame thing. Like, nobody's blaming anyone.
Yeah.
But is there anything at all that you feel maybe you're doing or not doing that's been holding you back from losing this weight?
Yeah.
And then they either say something.
Oh, there is that cheesecake every
Yeah.
Friday.
Oh, well, sometimes.
When I'm feeling a bit peckish.
After work every day, I do eat 2 packets of biscuits. And you're like,
Now that you mention it. Yeah.
That happens all the time.
Yeah.
Or they go, I don't know. And this is the problem, this is one of the mistakes that people make, right? They try to debate the person.
Mm.
And it's like, I don't need to debate you. I'm the expert. The fact
Yeah.
that you're in this situation tells me you're doing something wrong. I don't need to know what it is right now. I just need to know you are doing something wrong.
Yeah.
So when they're like, I don't know, I don't need to go and like try to debate them or convince them of anything. I just go, yeah, well, look, I mean, that's not your fault. Like, pretty much everyone I speak to is in the same situation. If they knew what they were doing wrong, they wouldn't be here.
Mm.
Okay, that's why people like us exist. But I guess having someone that can show you where you're going wrong so that you can actually start to lose this weight, that would be important for you.
Mm.
Yes, gotcha. That makes sense.
And that changes the whole, like, your whole status in their mind as well, because they can now see that, oh, okay, there is something I don't know.
Yeah.
Maybe he has the answer.
I am unshakable in my conviction that if you did everything right, you would lose the weight. And therefore, it doesn't matter what you're saying to me. You're not getting the goal.
Yeah.
And that means there's a problem.
Mm.
And I think you can apply that to like any type of offer. It's like, hey, mate, like, if you were doing everything right, like everything right, your business will be booming.
Mm.
So there has to be problems. Like, is that a fair thing to say?
Mm.
Okay, so if we were to think about it a little bit, it's not your fault you don't know, but if you were to think about it a little bit, where do you think you might be letting yourself down in your business?
Do you ever get people that like double down and they're like, no, like I track my calories and I do everything. I know that I do everything and I still don't lose weight. Do you ever get that?
I mean, it's frustrating that you feel like you're doing everything right.
Yeah.
I can imagine the frustration that you feel.
Yeah.
But the fact that you are not achieving your goal tells me that there has to be something.
Yeah. I like that. I like that you actually confront it.
Yeah, because if you believe that nothing works, why would you give me money?
Yeah. And it is true. Like, I mean, I know when I've gained weight even recently, like when I first got to Bangkok, like I gained a bit of weight.
Yeah.
But like, I know why. Like, I'm not tracking and I was eating too much. Like, it's simple.
But some of these people, they don't know, right?
Yeah.
But it's the way that you react. If they're like, I do everything right, I can't lose weight. And you're like, okay, but do you track calories? And they're like, yeah. And it's like, okay, but are you exercising? And they're like, yeah. And then you're just like,
yeah, you got nowhere to go.
I don't really know what the problem is. And then they're like, well, I don't believe in you at all as a person right now because you don't know what the problem is either. I'm fucked.
Yeah.
And that's where people go with it.
Yeah. I
was like, no, like, it would be like the dentist. The dentist would just be like, hey, look, there's a problem. Like, there's 100% a problem that needs to be fixed.
Yeah.
Because you shouldn't be in this situation if everything was going the way you feel it's going. And it's not your fault. Like, this is not your fault. I'm not blaming you. I'm not trying to make you feel bad. But the fact that this is happening means that there's a problem.
Mm.
Does that make sense? Yes. Okay. Move on.
Mm.
And then when I pitch, I'm like, hey, you know the way you don't know what the problem is. Well, we're going to come in and we're going to show you exactly what the problem is. We're
Yeah.
going to say, this is where you're going wrong. This is what you need to do so that you can start losing the weight.
Yeah.
And it's not going to be a question of if you can lose the weight. It's going to be a question of when.
That's
right?
slick.
So then it's just like boom, 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 boom. So the fact that they don't know what the problem is the
Yeah.
fucking problem.
Yeah.
I'm the expert. I don't need to debate you.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's simple.
Yeah.
So that's like, but that's where you find the fears. Because then like you go through it and you're like, at the end, before I go into price and stuff, I'm like, if I can still sense the fear, I'm like, hey, look, like, I know that you're still struggling to believe in yourself, which makes sense, right? Because you've tried and failed in the past. And then I'm just going to try to handle the fear objection, right? Because you pick it up because you can see the broken belief. And whenever there's a broken belief, there's going to be fear around changing the belief. So you can just like read into it. Like one of the things that I'm very, very, very good at, which I think has served me really well in fitness, is like solving fear objections before they come up. And it comes from, I'm the expert, they buy into me, and then I also see the fear and I go after it in the call and I chip away at it. Like we spoke about, like I have these moments where I big them up or I challenge them to be brave.
Yeah.
I challenge them to step outside their comfort zone. Because I always say to them, like, you're not going to believe in yourself until after you get results. So there's always this scary part at the start, right? But the issue is, what happens if you're always too scared? So you just never take action because you never believe in yourself.
Do you ever use like something I've been using recently is like the identity frame, where it's like I actually use fitness as an example because it's like if you're overweight, you have to start making decisions like a healthy person before you're actually a healthy person. Like, do you ever use that? Because I've been using that a lot on my calls where they'll say like, yeah, like it's just a lot of money. Like I'm scared. You know, I get fear quite a lot as well.
But I do make decisions like a healthy person. I'm doing everything right. So it depends. Depends on the context. Okay.
Yeah.
But no, I agree. Like you can do it.
Yeah.
The example that I use for fitness is like, when you bottom out like a think about it objection and they just won't tell you what they want to think about. And you're like, it's fear. Right. And you get to the end of it. And then they're like, you know, this is just how I make decisions. And I'm like, okay, that makes sense. Like it would make sense that this is how you make decisions. I guess, can I ask, are you happy with the outcome of the decisions you've been making around your health and fitness?
Yeah.
And they're like, no. They're like, okay, well, if you keep making decisions in the same way, how can we expect anything to change?
Yeah.
And it's the same idea, but I do it only in that very specific situation where you like get to the bottom of it, think about it, and there's nowhere to go.
Yeah.
Then I'm just like, well, it makes sense that you would do this.
Yeah. This is what you've done to get to where you are.
This is why you're here right now.
Yeah.
How long have you been thinking about making a change?
Yeah.
And they're like, no, I've never thought about it. And I'm, is it possible that's the problem? You just go down that path, right?
Yeah.
So it's funny.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think fitness has some weird things because the way I've always described it is it's like self-esteem. So it's like if someone, when you do sales training, I think we spoke about this before. It's like when you do sales training, you retain the skills. So you get better. So your self-esteem doesn't get worse, it gets better. And then you sign up for another sales training and you're like, oh, I'm better again. And you have this proof. With things like fitness, it's like, so if you're here, it's like, okay, I do a diet and I lose some weight. Awesome. And then it's like, oh no, I've stopped. I've gained all the weight back. Maybe I'm even heavier. And your self-esteem, instead of going up and up and up, it goes down and down and down. And that creates these like weird situations on calls where like responsibility frames don't work because you're like, yes, I'm responsible, but I don't believe in myself. It's my fault I'm fat, but it's like, I don't know what to do about it.
Yeah.
And it's like, you could be like, hey, who's responsible for making this change? And they're like, me, but I don't know what to do.
Yeah.
And they don't believe in you because you never gave them the belief.
Yeah.
And you just end up in these weird situations where they're like, yes, I am responsible, but no, I don't want to do this because I don't think it will work.
It's funny you say about the bigging up because sometimes I do the opposite. So like people might be like my favorite part of the call is when I'm future pacing and then I bring them back to reality to where they are. So like I'll do a lot of big upping, 12-month goal, 10 out of 10, blah, blah. Okay, you get XYZ. Well, how close are you to that right now? And then they're like, oh, I'm not close at all. And then you go into consequence. But like if I don't do that part where it's like how close are you to where you want to go, then they'll just have a high ego and just be like, oh, well, I can just do it.
So
I can get there.
There's an axis here for the people watching, right? There's like responsibility and then there's self-esteem. Responsibility is like, so what you're talking about is if you bring them too high on the self-esteem,
Yeah.
you have to bring them back because the buying pocket's in the middle.
Yeah, otherwise they'll think they can just do it on their own.
So if someone is low self-esteem and you do responsibility frames, you're not bringing them to the middle, you're just moving them up and down. Does that make sense?
Not really.
So it's like self-esteem, responsibility.
Yeah.
If I'm over, like say I'm low self-esteem.
Yeah.
But you're using responsibility frames.
Yeah.
You're just moving me on the self-esteem axis. But you're not moving me like, how do I describe this in visual form without the buying pocket's in the middle.
Yeah.
Right? So when you do a responsibility frame, you're trying to make someone feel more or less responsible.
Yeah.
Right? But if responsibility isn't your problem.
Yeah, if self-esteem's their issue, you could get them as responsible as you want, but the buying pocket's up here.
Exactly.
So
they're down here, low self-esteem, and you making them responsible. You're just moving them into this bottom right corner.
But you need to big them up a
really
little
they
bit.
need to be here.
Yeah.
In the middle.
I think that's why it depends like who you're selling to, like what demographic, right? Because like mine, I mean, some of them have self-esteem, but for the most part, it's not. Like if anything, it's too much self-esteem. So like they're too
that's
high.
Where
so that's why I got to bring
That's
them
why
down.
you have to use numbers to bring them back to reality. I think it does depend who you're speaking to. But I think that's one thing that people just don't understand about fitness.
It's a interesting way you just described it though, where you had that chart of responsibility and self-esteem, because I never thought of that. But it's like, yeah, if they like it's in the middle, the buying pocket, like you said. If they have too much self-esteem, they'll just do it. But if they don't have enough, they won't back themselves.
Yeah, the way I always describe it is too little, like whatever way you want to self-esteem that way. Too little self-esteem is like, I can't achieve my goal. Doesn't matter what happens, I can't do it.
Yeah.
Too high self-esteem is like, I don't need you.
Yeah.
I can do this.
Yeah.
And then responsibility is like too low responsibility is like, none of this is inside my control. It's my genetics. It's my hormones. Yeah. I can't do anything about it. Yeah. Yeah. It's the market. Yeah. There's like blah, blah, blah. It's the iOS changes. It's whatever, right? And too high responsibility is like, it's all on me. Nobody can help.
Yeah. I've never thought of it that way.
But when you start to have this like mental image in your head, and then you can hear what they're saying
on the call,
you start to just be like, oh, I need to move you this way.
Yeah.
I need to move you this way. I need to move. And this is what I consider pre-handling.
Okay.
Is I'm like reading you as a person.
Yeah.
And I'm going, this person thinks way too highly of themselves. I need to bring them down. Or this person has too high responsibility. When I start to add context to questions, or when I add context to things, I need to start talking about like that example I gave. If I want to mitigate them feeling too responsible or too high self-esteem, I'll say, well, look, everyone can lose weight with the right help. But I guess it always comes down to what we do or what we don't do. So I start tying in with the right help to mitigate that they don't go beyond the buying pocket, which can happen. You can big people up too much. It's fucking chess.
It is.
Mind chess.
That's what they don't tell you in the closer biz ops.
Yeah.
Make 10K a month, travel in the world.
Yeah. If you want to be really, really, really good, you have to like. But that's why I say, like, I think empathy is the best skill.
Yeah. Sam's really good at that.
Sam, he's very. Sam's like I hired Sam as a coach because he is someone that has picked up like my style and the stuff I do, and he just like applies it to a T. Yeah. It's like perfect. That's why I was like, because sales training is a funny one. Like, you can't really hire a coach unless they like align with you. Because I'm like, you're a representation of me. If that makes sense.
Yeah, sort of. Because it's like if you get a coach that like they hit X month and you want to get there, but they did it by working 100 hours a week and you don't want to work 100 hours a week, It's like,
Yeah.
well, you're not going to relate to what they teach
Yeah.
because that's for them.
But even what, like, it was more like, I agree though. But like, let's say I teach sales this way, and I hire someone that teaches sales a different way.
Mm.
I can't like,
Oh, I see what you
I
mean.
can't have
Yeah,
mixed
yeah,
messages.
yeah.
So like, it only makes sense to hire someone that's like
A mini you.
really in alignment.
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
yeah,
And Sam is like bang on.
yeah,
Like, he does, like, he's the same style. He's the closest I've ever heard.
yeah,
And he's fucking crushing it. I
yeah.
guess why that is.
Yeah.
But it's like the same. We do it the same. He does it like really the same.
Yeah.
And it's really, really good.
It's interesting though, because I feel like with empathy as well, like a lot of it is based on life experience. Like when I was on a men's health offer a few years back, and I struggled. Like it's weird because the first few months I did really well, but I was also working a ton. But then the third month I struggled because these were like 40-year-old tradies in Australia. We call them like plumbers,
Yeah.
like hardworking guys. And here I am, like this young 20-year-old kid, like that couldn't relate to them. So when they said like, "Oh yeah, my wife is thinking of divorcing me" or something like that, I had no idea what that feels like because I
No
was
partner objection.
yeah, you know. So or even like, you know, when you go traveling and like you talk to different people, you meet different personalities. Like I feel like that helps a lot as well.
Yeah. Yeah. I think it definitely, like, it is life experience. I think there's like, I think you can learn empathy. Like,
You reckon if you're just stuck in your room? I actually disagree. If you're just stuck in your room all day, right, and you don't get any social interactions, it's going to be much harder
but you
to
can learn empathy from calls, from sales calls. That's a social interaction.
Yeah.
But also, you just have to like I definitely, like, Chris Voss talks about tactical empathy.
Yeah.
Like, label things.
Yeah.
That's like empathy. I'm like, wow, that sounds frustrating. That's empathy.
Yeah.
Because they're frustrated.
You can see where they're coming from, but you might not agree with it.
But I just say it. It's like tactical empathy. Like,
Yeah.
but that's empathy. You know, it's like.
Yeah.
But I think it's like empathy in that you can understand. Yeah, it definitely is life experience, really. I think I can understand fear of failure and limiting beliefs and stuff because I've had them.
Yeah.
So I'm like, yeah, I just get it. Like
Like
I get what's going on in your head.
Yeah.
Or I know people that have like really struggled with their weight their whole life, and I'm like, I get it. Right. So it's like, it makes sense to me. And then, but then once you learn it,
Yeah.
like once you learn how to apply that life experience, like I have my own personal empathy that from life experience for fitness, and I got really, really, really good at using that. But now I could apply that to anything because I know how it works in a sales perspective.
Yeah.
And I know what to look out for. And that's what I mean. You can learn, maybe it has to be there, but you have to like, you can learn how to refine it.
Yeah. And also like you could fake it to a certain extent. Like you could fake empathy to a certain extent.
Yeah.
But exactly by doing that, like the tactical empathy thing. You might have no empathy, but if you just say, "Oh yeah, I can see how that."
Yeah, if you can portray it.
Yeah.
I mean, like when someone's telling me like, I haven't done anything about this in 40 years and I'm going to die, and I'm like, there's like part of you is like, you have empathy for them, but at the same time you're kind of like, what the fuck is wrong with you? You know, like, being honest, like,
wake up.
Sometimes you're on calls and you're like, come on.
Yeah,
like,
yeah.
What are you? It gets to the end of objection handling, and they're not going to do something, and you're like,
oh, you can't.
Oh my god, I actually can't. And that's actually probably where the empathy runs out. You're just like, I cannot relate to you anymore. Like, I have no idea what's going on in your head that is stopping you from taking some level of control.
Yeah, I'm ready to wrap up. If you reckon.
I
think that was good. But yeah, thanks for tuning in.
If you're still watching this now, thank you. You can leave a comment and let us know.
I'll give myself a shout out. You can follow me, Orlando.Santucci on Instagram. And how do you spell Diarmuid? Because people probably have no idea how to spell your name.
It's Diarmuid. It's a long one. But yeah, I have no idea what any of my handles are. You can go rewind. You can rewind that and listen to it like 5 times so that you can get the letters. It will also probably say it somewhere above or below this video, I presume. So yeah,
Oh,
You
that's
can give us a
good.
follow and stuff. Just don't send me messages asking if you can ask me 3 questions. I'm gonna
Virtual
ignore
coffee.
you. Yeah, virtual coffee. I'm gonna ignore you.
That's sick.
Cool.
All right. See ya.
Bye bye.